So I know we're running short of time. So instead of having it like a question answer session in panel mode, we decided that we would talk for 5 minutes, and at the end of our, after we make our points, we will open the panel for Q&A, and that's the mode which we are trying to follow so that we can save time. And my apologies, I might have to leave early because I have a scheduled meeting just after this session. So I'll try, I hope it will get over by 12:30, which is highly impossible, I think. But however, the panelists are here, and may I request Babu that you would take over in case if I have to leave in between. So thank you, and I should thank the organizers here for this opportunity, because we have some real stalwarts here in this field. I have been working in waste management for the past 28 years, so it's really nice to see that we have so many people in this field now. So with that note, let me get into the session, the topic. Namaste and good morning to all of you. I woke up today reading the headlines in the media. Garbage goes back to dustbin. A politician's quote, many of you would have also read about it. It's regarding the latest development in one of our states. I don't want to name it, but I'm sure you know about it. What is the missing point here is the reference to recycling and circular economy. So I hope the party takes a cue on this. Anyway, politics aside, let me narrate two stories to all of you in the context of recycling world. The first one is of plastic recycling. So to make 1 ton of PET plastic bottle, energy expended is 30,000 megajoules, which includes calculations from the formation of enthalpy of polyethylene from naphtha, transportation, packaging, etc. Once it reaches the customer, that is you and me, and we discard it, then bringing it back to a PET bottle manufacturer, which we now call it as circular economy. The story is, it saves 21,000 megajoules, which is 70% less energy. But this does not include, that is in the recycling sector, it does not include transportation, packaging and other resources which are being spent. So that is the reason why in Western countries, the logistics and the manpower costs, which are very high there, recycling is not economically sustainable. However, in countries like India, wherein manpower costs and a decentralized approach is existing, this becomes profitable. To make it more sustainable, we have to add a cost to take care of the environment and the health impacts. I mean, that's what we need to do. Even after taking care of these trade-offs, an educated guess is that circular economy of PET bottle recycling, that is cradle-to-cradle approach, is about 30% less energy consumed. So this story can be repeated at least 3 to 4 times when it comes to the PET bottle recycling, whereas up to 10 times if it is downcycled, because in circular economy it has to go back to making the bottles itself and not a bucket or a toothbrush or whatever. Now, but the story is not the same for other plastics, especially when it comes to single-use plastics. Now, let's go to the second scenario, which I would like to highlight, is about e-waste recycling. A very high-tech, centralized formal e-waste recycling unit with state-of-the-art crushing and sorting facility will save only 5% of energy, which does not include collection and transportation of the e-waste. which means it is energy negative. However, we are not including the resource recovery part of this exercise here. We are running out of rare earth metals, all of us know, and other precious metal resources, and we are now also looking towards Mars and Moon to fill this gap. However, the scenario is different when we look at less technology dependent manual dismantling methods, which is labor intensive. This makes it 60 to 70% more efficient, both energy wise and resource wise. This is the reason why our informal sector is thriving in almost all the recycling sector. However, here we need to be cautious about the health impacts and also the environmental impacts. This is the reason why most of the developed countries are weaponizing the metal resources. We have seen this happen even when we had this war between Russia and Ukraine. And also for the strategic development of a country, it is important to recover the rare earth and the precious metal resources. Here the most important aspect to be taken care of is that we need to keep in mind what is the need of the society. That's the reason why when we draw parallels, we had people moving away from kerosene as an energy fuel, which was then transferred. We have now the LPG, which is replaced by LPG, which became the need of the hour. Similarly, rare earth metals is the need now. So harmonizing with this need, if there is no need, then what happens is it is only environmental cost. And that's the reason why we see hazardous waste, which is being landfilled. And there it is only the cost of landfilling, there is environmental cost. So when we really talk about harmonizing the energy and harmonizing the resources, which is the lessons learned, is that we need to be conscious about the fact that sophisticated technology or high tech is not always the sustainable aspect. We have to be aware about the process of recycling to recover maximum resources. So when we look at any technology or process of recycling, we need to have a holistic approach for it to be sustainable. So these are the 2 points which I wanted to make. Let me also draw your attention to our session title, which is a bit skewed. The management word is actually missing here. It should read a sustainable approach to waste management and not sustainable approach to waste. It actually gives a completely different meaning. I actually remember some of the people referring, even today many of them refer to Pollution Control Board as Pollution Board. I leave it at that and open the floor to the panelists to present their technologies and approaches to make recycling a sustainable venture. Thank you very much and hope to hear from all of you.
Good afternoon everyone, I am Rohit Maskara, I am the project manager at Center for Environment Education. Most of you must be knowing Center for Environment Education was established in year 1984 as Center of Excellence for Ministry of Environment Forest. So don't get into much of the details of the organization. What we are currently doing with the support of HDFC Bank through their CSR, we are setting up MRFs and material recycling centers with the support of local ULBs, both in urban and rural areas. And in fact, first of its kind in India, you were talking about logistic and energy saving and others. So first of its kind in India where MRF and MRC both are set up together with the support of local ULBs. In fact, just 2 days back on 25th of January, we had our first of such kind center inaugurated in Bastar, Chhattisgarh by the CM of Chhattisgarh. So this is what we are talking about, energy efficiency, you are talking about resource efficiency, there are too much of the words we are talking about. So our tagline is reimagine the materials, the way we are using. First is producing, consuming and disposing the materials. So on that theme we are working. So our idea is not to set up any parallel system in the ULB or any location or any city what is there in the system. We try to strengthen the existing system. We try to involve, integrate all the stakeholders, including the informal sectors. As we all are like learned people here, we know the informal sectors are the key players to work with the in the waste management stream. So this is what we are doing. You were talking about some data. So the per acre extraction of material in India is 1580 tons compared to world's per acre data is 450 tons. So this is what we need to work on. Our recycling rates are still lower. We are working on that. While you are extracting from the ore, the material extraction is lower compared to while you are extracting from the recycling process. So this is what we are supporting, and this is what we are doing across locations.
You made a point saying that India's recycling rate is low, but that is in terms of the numbers which are out, because otherwise India's recycling is the highest. And if you agree with that, I don't know what. Yeah, because we have most of it in the informal sector, and we don't have the numbers, and that's the bane of our country. Now there are issues there, but that's a different thing. So I think if all of you agree, or maybe later if you have some other views, you can actually come back with that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having Craste in this esteemed panel today. My name is Onkar Siddeshwar, and I am currently the engineering lead and founding member for Craste. Now, Craste is basically an amalgamation of crop and waste. So, because that is exactly what we're doing, we are trying to reduce crop waste burning and trying to save the carbon that is being released into the environment every day. Now, India is the second largest farming nation in the world and generates almost 500 million tons of crop waste every year, out of which 16% is being burned currently, which releases 160 million tons of carbon dioxide into the environment. And what we're doing is we're utilizing this so-called waste and making some value-added products out of it, namely pulp and paper for packaging applications and engineered green boards for furniture applications. Now, so I would like to highlight the source, basically. The source of raw material, that is agro residue, is quite bulky, right? That is the main challenge that entrepreneurs and people working in this field are facing. And ma'am mentioned the point about decentralized working and micro units like the Amul model. That is exactly what we're trying to do. And we have commissioned our first pilot plant in MRAI in Madhya Pradesh, right? And so we take our factories to the source of raw material and that basically employ the local people there and try to make the pulp at the farm itself. Yeah, and the best thing about our boards is basically that they are formaldehyde free, right? E0 formaldehyde is basically a known carcinogen which is banned in the West already, and it is also going to be mandated in India. Uh, Now coming to the next point about circular economy, I mentioned the formaldehyde-free adhesive that we make. Basically, it is extracted from our pulping process. So pulping is basically a biomass fractionation process. If you may know, there are three components basically: cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. And lignin is basically a natural binder which comes out in the form of black liquor when you make pulp, right? And conventionally, it is just a waste for the industry and we extract that from the black liquor and use it as a biobinder in the engineered green boards. And yeah, that is all. We're trying to make an impact on the grassroots level. We're trying to make the farmers a part of our team because that is where it all starts. They have to be enlightened. They have to be motivated to not burn the crop waste. Yeah, and that's all. Like we aim to have almost 100 decentralized facilities all over India. Currently, we have commissioned a 10 ton per day plant in Marina, and yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Usually, when we talk about recycling, the agricultural waste recycling is not really thought of, and that's the need of the hour today, especially in India and especially places like Delhi, because it's also leading to other issues like our air pollution. So I think very good that. I know, yeah.
So everybody knows about Haryana because that is paddy.
Paddy.
Morena is basically a mustard belt. And it's been 2 years that we've been there, and I don't see mustard being burned anymore. Like, yeah, it's that good.
Yeah.
We have plans to go to Haryana and Punjab, just setting up supply chains with the help of government.
I was also involved in several innovative projects where these stubbles were taken out and then you do certain recycling. But all that failed only because here what we require is in situ and decentralized. Because otherwise logistics is a big issue in this. So I think that is a good point what you are doing.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, perfect. So I'm Tanya. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my solar energy firm in 2010, where there wasn't even a solar sector in India. And with the vision of saying, will there be a day that solar power or clean power will be cheaper than conventional fuels? I'm very proud, and I don't know how many of you know, today we generate renewable power at sub-coal prices, actually cheaper than coal. And almost 40% of the Indian electricity, this power that you're seeing here, the light that is running, actually comes from renewable sources, which includes both solar, wind, biomass, and stuff like that. I want to challenge and ask a few questions here before I start. How many of you actually measure your carbon footprint? How many of you measure your carbon footprint? Okay. Yeah, right. So in an evolved group of us, people who are genuinely concerned about sustainability, we're sitting, we're talking about it, we barely measure our carbon footprint. How can we reduce something we don't measure? जब हमें पता ही नहीं है प्रॉब्लम कहाँ है, तो हम उसको reduce कैसे करेंगे? Right? That's my first argument that I ask people. Awareness is the first step to do this, right? We heard Onkar say that they are bringing their factories closer to the source. We generate so much waste at home daily. How many of us actually sort it or segregate it? India is very lucky in the sense that you have cheap labor who does a lot of this hard work for you. But sometimes we disregard the value of small actions. And sustainability is all about those small actions. Boond boond se bharta sagar. Right? What if each one of us takes that limited small role? That small role can be anything. It can be segregating your waste. It can be saying I'll put a solar rooftop on my roof. It can be I'll carry a biodegradable bag when I go around to the market to not take a single-use plastic. All of those small actions can make a much larger impact. The second point I want to argue and ask is, there is a notion that sustainability is always expensive or cannot yield results or value. We just heard Bineesha say that when you recycle, you actually consume 30% of the power you did, which means you saved the cost of 70% power. So you saved money. Circular economy is not just about CSR or saying that, how do you get something for free. It's about creating value. Sustainability can create value. Let's take solar as an example. There was an era when solar prices were 18, 19 rupees a unit. Today it's 2.5, 3 rupees a unit. For your reference, coal generates power at 5 rupees. So you are not just generating price cheaper than coal, you are economically a viable solution. And for the sustainability to take off to the next level, we have to stop thinking about it as a CSR solution, but something that makes return, is an ROI solution for us. And that's where, let's be very clear, cash flow drives everybody. And if you can bring this as a profitable solution for your businesses, it will drive you. The third and the last point that I want to raise about is, how do you make these things mainstream in your lifestyle? Right? Not just talk about it as a report that happens year-end on ESG, or if I'm thinking of something good, but how do you make it a coffee conversation? And unless you do that, unless each one of us participate in it, educate a younger generation, make them more mindful, how can we have a sustainable approach to both waste management and energy. I'll pause here. We'll look forward to answer more questions.
Thank you, Tanya, especially because you brought in this point of how aware we are. Let's, calculating the CO2 and the footprint is a little higher level. But if we are talking about how much waste do you generate, we don't have a number. And we are actually very bad in the number, crunching, or even at least finding out how much we generate. We claim ourselves to be mathematics genius of the world, but when it comes to counting the numbers, we are so bad, and that is why we have all these problems in our country. And that's the reason why although there's in recycling, we have been doing really well. We have not been able to showcase that to the world. And so data is a major issue. And when it comes to solar recycling, again, we have a good, saying that so many acres or this much is our solarizing, and it's a sunrise sector and all that. But about the recycling aspect of it, we still don't have an answer.
Yeah. So, Bineesha, at 18 gigawatts of power can be made out of just biomass. But today we're not even generating 20% of it. So that's the stat.
Babu.
It's very good to be here again. Thank you for the opportunity. I heard some really powerful thoughts. And continuing on that particular statement you made, a sustainable approach to waste management, I was also reinterpreting the title of the session, Harmonizing Energy versus Harnessing. Harnessing energy and resources. And we heard here, I think it was Onkar who talked about harnessing a resource. Not so much as recycling the resource, but it's a resource that's available as a plant. So it's normally wasted or not used properly. So I come from talking about mathematical genius, a school started by a sage Apastamba. He comes from the Baudayana school. It's WhatsApp University knows that he squared the circle before Pythagoras. So fortunately, that kind of school existed in India. The sages built the temples and created the geometry almost 300-400 years before the Greeks. Fortunately, I happen to come from that family, but the West has really helped human progress. I want to start by sharing what a kinematician like I transform energy into work. That's my primary undertaking. Like Archimedes created those 5 simple machines. How can we efficiently use energy and do useful work and not wasteful work? But before I start there, just on this harmonizing thought, it was Adam Smith who wrote this book, The Wealth of the Nations, which started this aspect of what we call the free market economy, as opposed to Das Kapital by Karl Marx, which is now written off. But the approach that Adam Smith proposed is still valid as per Western thought. And what that does is focus on one aspect called specialization. So if you want to make progress, you better specialize. And today, if you talk about what we do, somebody creates a product and for which you need something like a packaging perhaps. And who cares about disposal? It's a specialized job to dispose. And you don't have to worry because somebody else will do it. So this particular model that Adam Smith has proposed and it's been adopted, which led to all these progress, as a problem. It not only results in alienation, which is the example I shared, that no one cares to look at fundamental problems the world faces, including human problems, but also overexploitation. So the consequence of high level of specialization is this. But to the point of defining recycling as circular economy, I also have a thought to share with this group and the audience. That Adam Smith's model not only creates this need for specialization, but again, which leads to alienation and overexploitation, but also there's a need for refining. And our entire education model is structured on it, and the entire allopathic medicine is structured on it. If I were to take a medicine for treating myself, I have to take that particular ingredient, it could be paracetamol, and that's what's going to fix me. And I need to know exactly how it works on an average. So if I have to do a clinical and it worked on 65% of the people, that's good. Now, what about the remaining 35%? I don't have to worry. It worked on 65% of the people. So the word of refining, which is the approach we take, is sometimes used in waste processing and waste recycling. Everything and anything has to be refined down to its original level to be able to be reused. And that's how we even qualify ourselves in school. We start not qualified, and as you work your way through, you get different levels of qualification. So this ability to just refine and not build is certainly one approach. It's still valid. I'm not saying throw away the book on the wealth of the nation. But seriously, if you want to make this world a better place, we have to worry about harnessing energy and resources correctly. And one particular approach that we've been trying to work on is just like nature, when you put things together, just like Ayurveda, when you have multiple ingredients all at once in a compound, you better know the patient. An Ayurvedic physician cannot treat unless he knows the patient personally. He knows the family, sometimes for generations, and only then the medicine would be applicable. You would even change the lifestyle of the individual. You would want to know what the person will eat and not eat. And that's not how an allopathic doctor would treat a patient. Here, you have ibuprofen, take it. It works 98% of the time. You may be the 2% who will die. So clearly, the basis of what we need are solutions that has more of our yoga principle, the more of synthesis principle, the more of ability to use all of what we have. And it is possible, and to initially your point, that even with waste management, if we not only do monostreaming, that is, if this bottle has to be recycled, we can isolate everything, clean it thoroughly, and use the polyester to make a fiber, and even the Prime Minister will repair it as a vest. And all the different components can go, but all together with least amount of energy and resources. So the first pass, it's like our Indian system of rebirth. So in the first pass, this is a bottle. In the next pass, it's a book substitute. So it keeps rebirth, and that could be a solution to recycling.
So it's like prevention and treating the root cause. So that's the approach. You're trying to draw a parallel. But I would also like you to highlight on the technology which you have invented, especially because that's something very innovative.
Right.
And taking this approach is how you have it done. So maybe that would be interesting.
Absolutely, especially for recycling, when it's unqualified and multiple material, and we heard this point of decentralized. You're a big believer in that. So if we need to capture all of this material, especially flexible, dirty, contaminated, sometimes it's pathogen-ridden, and how would we treat it at source, at origin? It could be a hospital, it could be a community, or it could be children coming to a school with a bag every day. And if they throw it in, that treatment needs extremely powerful technology to nano-compound and nanofibrillate every material except the matrix material, which means there is a polymer which forms the basic substrate, and everything else becomes a fiber. And just like when we ultimately convert that into a wood substitute, those will create the required strength and stiffness. So that's the first step in a decentralized equipment, which can run on even solar power, the point you were making. And that is the first piece of technology. And the next piece of technology would be to intelligently run it, although a large portion of it is this material. But with artificial intelligence available today, sensors available today downstream, so every piece of log that's produced qualifies.
Thank you. So